The dusty stagecoach rattled into Fort Worth, Texas, on a sweltering afternoon in July of 1878, carrying a woman who had already decided she would rather die than return to the life she had left behind in Denver. Olivia Zimmerman pressed her gloved hand against the worn leather seat as the coach lurched to a stop outside the general store, her heart hammering so hard she thought the other passengers might hear it. She had answered an advertisement placed by a rancher named Samuel Griffin, a man she had never met, never seen, and who knew nothing of the years she had spent singing and serving drinks at the Silver Dollar Saloon. The letter she had written in response to his advertisement had been carefully worded, mentioning only that she was 23 years old, unmarried, of sound health, and seeking a respectable life as a wife and helpmate. She had not lied exactly. She had simply omitted the truth that would have prevented any decent man from responding. The stage driver opened the door and offered his weathered hand. Olivia took it and stepped down onto the wooden boardwalk, squinting against the bright Texas sun. Fort Worth was larger than she had expected, with two-story buildings lining the main street and the sound of hammers ringing out from somewhere nearby where new construction was underway. Cowboys on horseback moved through the street alongside wagons, and she could smell livestock and dust and the peculiar dry heat of this place that was so different from Colorado. "Miss Zimmerman." The voice came from behind her, deep and uncertain. Olivia turned and found herself looking up at a tall man in his late 20s with sun-darkened skin and pale blue eyes that seemed almost startling against his tanned face. He held his hat in his hands, turning it nervously, and she noticed his hair was the color of wheat at harvest time. His clothes were clean but worn, the shirt mended at one elbow, and his boots showed the scuffs and dust of a man who worked hard for his living. "Mr. Griffin?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Yes, madam, Samuel Griffin. Most folks call me Sam." He cleared his throat. "I hope your journey was not too difficult. It was long, but I am here now." Olivia managed a small smile. She had practiced this moment in her mind 100 times during the 3-day journey, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of meeting this stranger who expected to marry her. Sam retrieved her trunk from the back of the stage, lifting it easily despite its weight. "I thought we might get you settled at the boarding house for tonight. Mrs. Henderson runs a respectable place. Then tomorrow, if you are agreeable, we could speak with Reverend Thompson about the wedding." The directness of it startled her, though she should have expected nothing less. This was a business arrangement, after all. A man needed a wife to help run his ranch, and she needed a new life far from the whispers and knowing looks that had followed her in Denver. "That would be acceptable," Olivia said quietly. They walked down the boardwalk side by side, Sam carrying her trunk on his shoulder. She noticed people watching them with open curiosity, and her stomach tightened. Small towns were the same everywhere. Everyone knew everyone else's business, and a mail-order bride arriving on the afternoon stage would be the talk of every supper table tonight. "My ranch is about 8 miles west of town," Sam said as they walked. "It is not large, but it is mine. I have about 200 head of cattle, some horses, a small cabin. I built it myself 3 years ago when I finally saved enough to buy the land." He paused, seeming to search for words. "I know this is not the way most people meet and marry. But I promise you, Miss Zimmerman, I am a man of my word. I will provide for you and treat you with respect. I will not ask more of you than you are willing to give." Something in his tone made Olivia look at him more closely. There was a gentleness in his face that surprised her, a decency she had learned not to expect from men. Most of the men she had known at the saloon wanted only one thing, and they paid for the privilege of her company without caring who she was beneath the rouge and the silk dress. "I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Griffin," she said carefully. "Sam," he corrected. "If we are to be married, I would like you to call me Sam. Then you must call me Olivia." They reached the boarding house, a neat two-story structure with white curtains in the windows and a small garden growing out front. Mrs. Henderson turned out to be a plump woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She looked Olivia up and down in a way that made her feel exposed, as if the older woman could see right through her carefully respectable traveling dress to the scarlet gown and feathered hair combs she had left behind in Denver. "So, you are the bride Sam sent for, Mrs. Henderson said, not unkindly. "Well, you look healthy enough. Can you cook and sew?" "Yes, madam," Olivia replied, which was mostly true. She could cook simple meals and mend basic tears, though her skills were nothing compared to what a woman raised in a proper household would possess. "I will take good care of her, Mrs. Henderson," Sam said. "We will be married tomorrow if Olivia agrees." Mrs. Henderson sniffed but showed Olivia to a small, clean room upstairs. Sam brought up her trunk and set it down gently, then stood awkwardly in the doorway. "I will return in the morning," he said. "Around 9 o'clock, if that suits you. We can speak with the Reverend then." He hesitated, his hat still in his hands. "I am glad you came, Olivia. I hope you will find happiness here." He left before she could respond, his boots heavy on the stairs. Olivia sat down on the narrow bed and pressed her hands to her face, suddenly overcome with the enormity of what she was doing. Tomorrow she would marry a stranger. Tomorrow she would become Mrs. Samuel Griffin and begin a new life as a rancher's wife. If Sam ever learned the truth about her past, he would likely throw her out and she would have nowhere to go. But she could not go back. That much she knew with absolute certainty. The owner of the silver dollar, a man named Dalton with mean eyes and meaner fists, had made it clear that the girls who worked for him belonged to him. When Olivia had announced her intention to leave, he had locked her in her room and told her she owed him money for room and board. It had taken every ounce of courage she possessed to climb out the window in the middle of the night and flee with nothing but the clothes on her back and the small amount of money she had managed to hide away over the years. She had answered Sam's advertisement from a different town, using the last of her savings to buy a proper dress and have her letter posted. And now here she was, about to marry a man who believed her to be respectable, a man who looked at her with kindness in his eyes instead of hunger. Olivia unpacked her few belongings, hands shaking slightly as she hung up her 2 dresses and arranged her brush and mirror on the small dresser. The window looked out over Fort Worth's Main Street, and she watched as Sam emerged from the boarding house and untied his horse from the hitching post. He mounted with easy grace and rode away, his back straight, his head held high. He seemed like a good man, she thought. A decent man. Perhaps if she worked hard and proved herself useful, he would never need to know about Denver. That evening, Mrs. Henderson brought a tray of food to her room. Beef stew with vegetables and thick slices of bread, along with strong coffee. The older woman lingered in the doorway, her expression less stern than before. "Sam Griffin is a good man," she said abruptly. "Works hard, does not drink to excess, pays his debts. He has had a difficult time of it trying to run that ranch alone. His parents died of fever 5 years back and he has no siblings. He needs a wife and not just for the work. A man gets lonely out there." "I will do my best to be a good wife to him," Olivia said, meaning it. Mrs. Henderson nodded slowly. "We all have pasts, girl. What matters is what we do going forward." With that cryptic statement, she left, closing the door softly behind her. Olivia barely slept that night, her mind too full of worry and hope and fear. When dawn finally came, she washed carefully with the water in the pitcher and dressed in her best dress, a modest dark blue calico with a white collar. She pinned up her auburn hair in a simple style and looked at herself in the small mirror. Without the rouge and kohl she had worn at the saloon, her face looked younger, more innocent. Her green eyes stared back at her, and she whispered to her reflection, "You can do this. This is your chance." Sam arrived promptly at 9 o'clock, dressed in what were clearly his Sunday best clothes: dark trousers, a clean white shirt, and a black vest. He had shaved carefully, and his hair was neatly combed. He looked nervous, and somehow that made Olivia feel slightly better. "You look very nice," he said, his ears turning slightly red as he spoke. "Thank you, as do you." They walked together to the church, a simple wooden structure with a cross on the steeple. Reverend Thompson was expecting them, a thin man with kind eyes and a soft voice. Mrs. Henderson came along as a witness, along with the town doctor, a man named Dr. Morrison, who apparently was Sam's friend. The ceremony was brief and simple. Olivia heard herself speak the vows, promising to love, honor, and obey this man she barely knew. When Sam slipped a simple gold band on her finger, his hand was steady even though she could feel her own trembling. Then the Reverend pronounced them man and wife, and Sam leaned down to kiss her cheek gently, respectfully. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Griffin," he said softly, and despite everything, Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. They signed the certificate and it was done. She was married. She was respectable. She was safe, at least for now. Sam had brought a wagon to carry her trunk, and they rode together out of Fort Worth toward his ranch. The countryside was open and rolling, with scattered trees and endless sky. Cattle grazed in the distance, and hawks circled overhead. It was beautiful in a stark, lonely way. "The cabin is small," Sam said as they rode, "but I built it solid. There is a creek nearby for water, and I have a good well. The land is decent for grazing, and I have been able to add to my herd each year. In time, I hope to build something bigger, something finer. A real house with separate rooms and a proper kitchen. I am sure the cabin will be just fine," Olivia assured him. When they arrived, she saw that he had understated things. The cabin was indeed small, just 2 rooms, but it was sturdily built with a stone fireplace and glass windows. There was a small barn and a corral with several horses. Everything was neat and well maintained, the work of a man who took pride in what he had built. Sam helped her down from the wagon and carried her trunk inside. The main room contained a table with 2 chairs, a rocking chair near the fireplace, shelves with supplies, and a small kitchen area. Through an open door, she could see the bedroom with its simple bed covered in a colorful quilt. "My mother made that quilt," Sam said, noticing her gaze. "It is one of the few things I have of hers." He cleared his throat. "I will sleep out in the barn tonight, give you time to settle in. I know this is all very sudden, and I do not want you to feel uncomfortable." His consideration surprised her. "Sam, you do not have to do that. This is your home." "It is our home now," he corrected gently. "But still, I think it would be best. We are strangers, Olivia, and I want you to feel safe here." She looked at this man, this husband of hers, and felt something shift in her chest. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That is very kind." Sam showed her around the property, introducing her to the horses and explaining where things were kept. He was patient and thorough, and she tried to memorize everything. When they returned to the cabin, she insisted on preparing their midday meal, nervous about revealing her limited cooking skills. She managed a decent stew using the supplies she found in the larder, along with biscuits that were only slightly burned on the bottom. Sam ate everything on his plate without complaint. "This is good," he said. "Thank you." They spent the afternoon in careful politeness, learning the rhythms of sharing space with each other. Sam went out to tend to his animals, and Olivia unpacked her things and explored the cabin more thoroughly. She found that Sam kept everything orderly and clean, unusual for a bachelor. There were books on a shelf, mostly about ranching and animal husbandry, but also a worn copy of Shakespeare's plays and a collection of poems. When evening came, Sam heated water for her to wash with, then carried his bedroll out to the barn as he had promised. Olivia lay alone in the bedroom that night, in the bed that still smelled faintly of Sam, and wondered what her life would be like now. For the first time in years, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. The next days fell into a pattern. Sam rose before dawn to tend the animals and ride out to check on his cattle. Olivia worked on making the cabin more comfortable, washing clothes and linens, preparing meals, and trying to learn the countless tasks involved in running a ranch household. Sam was patient with her mistakes, never criticizing when her bread did not rise properly or when she forgot to collect the eggs from the chickens he kept near the barn. He continued to sleep in the barn, and Olivia found herself both relieved and strangely disappointed by this arrangement. Sam was unfailingly polite and respectful, but there was a distance between them, a careful formality that left her feeling lonely even in his presence. One evening, about a week after their wedding, a storm rolled in from the west. The wind picked up, howling around the cabin, and rain began to pound on the roof. Olivia was washing dishes when she heard a knock at the door. She opened it to find Sam standing there, soaked through and shivering slightly. "I am sorry to intrude," he said, "but the barn roof is leaking badly in one corner and everything is getting wet. May I come in, of course? This is your home, Sam. You do not need to ask permission." She pulled him inside and grabbed a towel from the shelf. "You are freezing. Come sit by the fire." Sam sat in the rocking chair, and Olivia draped a blanket around his shoulders. She poured him coffee from the pot that was always kept warm on the stove and watched as he wrapped his hands around the cup gratefully. "I will fix the roof tomorrow," he said. "I should have done it sooner, but there has been so much other work." "You cannot do everything yourself," Olivia said, surprised by her own boldness. "You need help, Sam. That is why you needed a wife." He looked at her over the rim of his cup, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his eyes, some emotion he quickly suppressed. "You have been a great help already. The cabin has never been so comfortable and your cooking gets better every day." "I am trying," she admitted. "I was not raised on a ranch. My skills are limited." "Where were you raised?" Sam asked, and Olivia's heart stopped. She had known this question would come eventually, had prepared her answer carefully, but still it terrified her to speak it. "In various places," she said, which was true. Her mother had died when she was 12, her father a year later, and she had been passed between relatives who did not want her until finally, at 16, she had found herself alone in Denver with no money and no prospects. The saloon had seemed like her only choice. "My parents are both deceased. I have no other family." Something in her tone must have warned him not to press further because Sam simply nodded. "I am sorry for your loss. Family is important, or it was when I had one." They sat in companionable silence, listening to the storm rage outside. After a while, Olivia found the courage to speak again. "Sam, why did you send for a mail-order bride? Surely there are women in Fort Worth who would have married you." He smiled slightly, a sad expression. "I am not much for socializing. I am awkward around people, always have been. My parents used to despair of me ever finding a wife. After they died, I threw myself into building this ranch, and before I knew it, years had passed. I looked up one day and realized I was nearly 30 years old and completely alone." I saw the advertisement service in a newspaper and thought perhaps a business arrangement would be simpler. Someone who wanted a new start, who would not judge me for being rough around the edges. You are not rough, Olivia said softly. You are one of the kindest men I have ever met. Sam looked at her, really looked at her, and something passed between them in that moment. The careful distance they had maintained began to crack. I am glad you came, Olivia. I want you to know that. I hope you will be happy here. I think I could be, she said honestly. That night, Sam slept on the floor near the fireplace, wrapped in blankets, rather than return to the leaking barn. When Olivia woke in the morning and came out to start breakfast, she found him already up and gone, out to repair the roof before starting his other chores. The blankets were neatly folded, and he had already started a fire in the stove for her. Something shifted after that night. Though Sam continued to sleep in the barn once it was repaired, the formality between them began to ease. They talked more during meals, sharing small stories about their days. Sam told her about the cattle he was raising, his hopes for the ranch, his dreams of one day having the finest herd in this part of Texas. Olivia shared carefully edited stories from her childhood, the good memories before everything went wrong. She learned that Sam had a dry sense of humor that surprised her into laughter. He learned that she loved to read and would devour any book he brought her from town. They began to move around each other with more ease, their routines synchronizing naturally. 2 weeks after their wedding, Sam asked if she would like to accompany him into town for supplies. Olivia agreed, eager to see more of Fort Worth and to escape the isolation of the ranch for a few hours. They rode together in the wagon, and Sam pointed out landmarks and told her stories about the area as they traveled. Fort Worth was busy with Saturday activity when they arrived. Sam helped her down from the wagon and offered his arm as they walked to the general store. Olivia was acutely aware of people watching them, women's heads turning to whisper to each other. She kept her chin up and her expression calm, but inside she was quaking. They were selecting supplies when a woman's voice rang out, loud and clear. Well, if it is not Sam Griffin and his mail-order bride, how quaint. Olivia turned to see a beautiful blonde woman in an expensive dress regarding them with barely concealed disdain. Beside her stood an older woman with similar features, clearly her mother. "Hello, Constance," Sam said evenly. "Mrs. Fairfield." "Congratulations on your marriage," Constance said, her smile sharp. "How romantic, ordering a wife from a newspaper like a new saddle or a pair of boots." "Constance," her mother hissed, but the damage was done. Sam's jaw tightened, but his voice remained level. "Thank you for your well wishes. If you will excuse us, we have shopping to complete." He guided Olivia away, his hand firm on her elbow. Once they were out of earshot, Olivia whispered, "Who was that?" "Constance Fairfield. Her father owns the largest ranch in the county. She and I grew up together, and there was a time when people expected we might marry. But Constance wanted a husband with money and social standing, things I could not offer her. She married a banker from Dallas last year, but he died of pneumonia 6 months later. Now she is back, a wealthy widow." "She seems unpleasant," Olivia said. To her surprise, Sam laughed. "That is putting it kindly. She was always like that, even as a child. Everything had to be her way, and she could not stand to be crossed. I had a fortunate escape, truth be told." They finished their shopping and loaded the supplies into the wagon. As they were preparing to leave, Dr. Morrison approached them with a friendly smile. "Sam, Mrs. Griffin, good to see you both. I hope married life is treating you well." "Very well, thank you," Sam replied. "There is a social next Saturday at the church, a summer celebration. I hope you will both attend. It would be a good opportunity for Olivia to meet more people in the community." Sam glanced at Olivia questioningly. She wanted to refuse, dreading the scrutiny and whispers, but she knew this was part of her new life. She had to face these people eventually. "We would be happy to attend," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The week before the social passed quickly. Olivia worked on altering her best dress, adding some ribbon she had purchased to make it more festive. Sam brought in a young steer that had broken its leg, and she helped him set it in a splint, surprised by her own ability to handle the situation without fainting. Sam praised her calm demeanor, and she felt a warm glow of pride. On the evening before the social, they sat together on the porch after supper, watching the sun set over the western hills. The air was finally cooling after another scorching day, and the sound of crickets filled the evening. "Olivia," Sam said quietly, "I want to thank you. For what? For coming here. For giving this life a chance. I know it is not easy being married to a stranger living so far from town, but you have made this house a home. I have not felt this content in years." Olivia felt her throat tighten. "You have given me something precious, Sam, a chance to start over, to be someone different than who I was. I am the one who should be grateful." He looked at her in the fading light, and she saw tenderness in his expression. "You do not have to be different, Olivia. Whoever you were, wherever you came from, that is part of what made you into the woman you are now, and I think you are remarkable just as you are." If only he knew, she thought. If only he knew the truth, he would not say such things. But she could not tell him. She could never tell him. The next afternoon, they dressed in their best clothes and rode to town for the social. The churchyard had been decorated with bunting and lanterns, and tables laden with food were set up under the trees. Music drifted from a small group of musicians with a fiddle, guitar, and harmonica. People milled about in small groups, talking and laughing. Sam stayed close to Olivia's side as they moved through the crowd. She was introduced to so many people that she quickly lost track of names: ranchers and their wives, shopkeepers, the schoolteacher, the blacksmith. Most were polite, though she saw speculation in many eyes. Mrs. Henderson was there and greeted her warmly, which helped ease some of Olivia's nervousness. They were filling plates with food when Constance Fairfield appeared again, dressed in a stunning emerald green gown that must have cost more than Sam earned in a month. "Mrs. Griffin," she said with false sweetness, "I was hoping to speak with you. It is so rare that we get newcomers to our little community, especially ones with such interesting origins." Olivia felt ice slide down her spine. "I am not sure what you mean." "Oh, just that mail-order brides are such a curiosity. One does wonder about a woman who would travel all this way to marry a man she has never met. What circumstances would drive someone to such desperate measures?" "That is enough, Constance," Sam said sharply, but Constance was not finished. "I am simply curious about your new wife's background, Sam. Where did you say you were from, Mrs. Griffin?" Before Olivia could answer, a new voice interrupted. "She said she was from various places, which is none of your concern, Miss Fairfield. Or is it Mrs. Monroe? I can never remember if widows use their married names or not." Olivia turned to see a striking woman about her own age with dark hair and flashing eyes. She wore a simple but elegant dress and regarded Constance with barely concealed dislike. "This does not concern you, Harriet," Constance snapped. "Actually, it does. Mrs. Griffin is a guest at this social and you are being rude. I am sure your mother would be horrified by your behavior." Harriet turned to Olivia with a genuine smile. "I am Harriet Sullivan. My husband owns the livery stable in town. I am very pleased to meet you, Mrs. Griffin. Any woman who has captured Sam Griffin's attention must be special indeed." "Thank you," Olivia said gratefully. "Please call me Olivia." Constance made a disgusted sound and stalked away. Harriet linked her arm through Olivia's companionably. Do not let her bother you. Constance has been bitter ever since Sam refused to court her properly. She expected him to beg for her hand, and when he did not, she never forgave him. Come, let me introduce you to the other ladies. We are thrilled to have someone new to talk to. Harriet proved to be a godsend. She was warm and funny and seemed genuinely interested in befriending Olivia. She introduced her to several other women around their age, and soon Olivia found herself involved in animated conversations about recipes, the heat, and the upcoming harvest festival. For the first time since arriving in Fort Worth, she began to feel like she might belong here. As evening fell and lanterns were lit, the music picked up and couples began to dance. Sam appeared at Olivia's side and extended his hand. "Would you dance with me?" She had not danced since her nights at the saloon, where she had learned to whirl around the floor with drunken cowboys who held her too close and whispered crude suggestions in her ear. But this was different. This was her husband asking properly, respectfully. "I would like that," she said. Sam led her to the dancing area and pulled her carefully into his arms. He was a decent dancer, steady and sure, and she followed his lead easily. They moved together smoothly, and Olivia was acutely aware of the warmth of his hand at her waist, the solid strength of his shoulder under her palm. "You dance well," Sam said, looking down at her. "So do you. Where did you learn?" "My mother taught me. She said a gentleman should always know how to dance, even if he was a rough rancher." His expression grew wistful. "She would have liked you, I think. I wish I could have met her." They danced through 2 songs, and when the music changed to something slower, Sam drew her slightly closer. Olivia felt her heart begin to race. This was more than courtesy now. This felt like something real. When the song ended, Sam did not immediately release her. They stood close together, and Olivia looked up to find him watching her with an expression she had never seen before. Heat, yes, but also tenderness and something that might have been longing. "Sam," she whispered, not sure what she wanted to say. "I know we married as strangers," he said quietly, his voice rough. "But I find that I am growing quite fond of you, Olivia Griffin. More than fond, if I am honest." Her heart felt like it might burst from her chest. "I feel the same," she admitted. "When we return home tonight," he said carefully, "I would like to sleep in my own bed, with my wife, if you are willing." Olivia knew what he was asking. Their marriage would become real, not just a legal arrangement but a true union. Part of her was terrified, remembering all the ways men had touched her in the past without love or tenderness. But Sam was different. Everything about him was different. "I am willing," she said softly. The ride home seemed to take both forever and no time at all. They sat close together on the wagon seat, Sam's arm around her shoulders ostensibly to steady her on the rough road, but really just to be close. When they arrived at the cabin, Sam unhitched the horses with fumbling haste and led Olivia inside. In the bedroom, lit by a single lamp, they came together with a mixture of nervousness and desire. Sam was gentle, patient, taking his time to make sure she was comfortable. When he kissed her for the first time, truly kissed her, it was nothing like the sloppy, demanding kisses she had endured at the saloon. This was sweet and questioning, and she opened to him willingly. "Are you sure?" he asked, even as his hands trembled on the buttons of her dress. "I am sure," she told him. That night, Olivia learned what it meant to be truly loved by a man who cared about her pleasure as much as his own. Sam was tender and careful, murmuring endearments and making sure she was with him every step of the way. When it was over, he held her close, his face buried in her hair, and whispered, "I think I am falling in love with you, Olivia." She wanted to say it back, wanted to tell him that she loved him too, but the words stuck in her throat. How could she declare her love when he did not know the truth about her? Instead, she held him tighter and said, I am so glad I found you." They fell asleep tangled together, and when Olivia woke in the morning to find Sam still beside her, one arm thrown possessively across her waist, she felt a happiness so profound it was almost painful. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Olivia's life. She and Sam settled into true married life, sharing not just a home but a bed and an intimacy that grew deeper each day. They worked together during the day and came together at night with increasing passion and tenderness. Sam told her he loved her often, and each time Olivia ached to say it back, but the secret she carried prevented her from speaking the words fully. August turned to September, and the brutal Texas heat began to ease slightly. Olivia had grown more confident in her role as a rancher's wife, managing the household efficiently, and even helping Sam with some of the outdoor work. She had learned to gather eggs without getting pecked, to milk the cows Sam had purchased at her request, and to help with the vegetable garden they had planted together. One afternoon, Olivia was in town purchasing supplies when she saw a man she recognized from Denver. He was standing outside the saloon, and her heart nearly stopped. It was Jake Hansen, one of Dalton's associates, a man who had been at the Silver Dollar many times. If he recognized her, if he mentioned her past to anyone, she would be ruined. Olivia pulled her bonnet lower over her face and hurried into the general store, her hands shaking. She completed her purchases as quickly as possible and practically ran back to the wagon. All the way home, she watched the road behind her, terrified that Jake might have followed. When she reached the cabin, she found Sam repairing a fence near the barn. He took one look at her face and immediately came to her side. "Olivia, what is wrong? You are pale as a ghost." "I am fine," she lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired from the heat." But Sam was not fooled. He took her hands in his, steadying them. "You are trembling. Something frightened you. Please tell me what it is." She wanted to confess everything then, wanted to unburden herself of the weight she had been carrying, but fear held her silent. "It is nothing, truly. I just felt unwell for a moment, but I am better now." Sam did not look convinced, but he did not press her. Instead, he pulled her into his arms and held her close. "You can tell me anything, you know. There is nothing you could say that would change how I feel about you." Oh, if only that were true, Olivia thought despairingly. That night she could not sleep. She lay beside Sam, listening to his steady breathing, and wrestled with her conscience. He deserved to know the truth. If their marriage was to be built on honesty and trust, she needed to tell him about her past. But the thought of seeing his love turn to disgust, of losing everything she had found here, was unbearable. The next morning, Sam announced that he needed to drive some cattle to market and would be gone for 3 days. "Will you be all right here alone?" he asked worriedly. "I could ask Harriet to come stay with you." "I will be fine," Olivia assured him. "I have the rifle you taught me to shoot, and I know how to take care of the animals. Go and make a good sale." Sam kissed her thoroughly before he left, making her promise to be careful. She stood in the doorway and watched him ride away, leading a dozen head of cattle toward Fort Worth, and felt loneliness settle over her like a cloak. The first day alone passed uneventfully. Olivia kept busy with household chores and tending the animals. But on the second day, as she was drawing water from the well, she heard a horse approaching. She looked up to see Jake Hansen riding toward the cabin, and terror flooded through her. Olivia ran inside and grabbed the rifle, her heart pounding. By the time Jake reached the door, she had it loaded and aimed at him through the window. "That is far enough," she called out. "State your business and move on." Jake laughed, dismounting from his horse. "That is no way to greet an old friend, Olivia, or should I say Vivian? That was your name at the Silver Dollar, was it not?" "I do not know what you are talking about. You have the wrong person." "Oh, I do not think so. I recognize you, even without all that paint and those fancy dresses. You ran out on Dalton and he is not happy about it. He sent me to find you." "I do not work for Dalton anymore," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am married now. This is my home and you are trespassing. Leave or I will shoot." Jake took a step closer. "Married, are you? Does your husband know what you used to do? Does he know how many men paid for your company?" "I sang and served drinks," Olivia said desperately. "That is all I did." "Is that what you tell yourself? Dalton says you owe him money. He wants you to come back and work off your debt." "I owe him nothing. I worked for my room and board and he kept all my wages. Now get off this property." Jake's expression hardened. "You are coming with me one way or another. We can do this easy or we can do it hard." He moved toward the door and Olivia fired a warning shot that kicked up dust near his feet. Jake jumped back, swearing. "You crazy woman." "The next one goes through your heart," Olivia promised, her voice cold. "I meant what I said. This is my home and I will defend it. Now get on your horse and ride out of here or I swear I will kill you." Perhaps it was the absolute conviction in her voice, or perhaps it was the steady way she held the rifle, but something made Jake believe her. He backed toward his horse, hands raised. "Fine. But Dalton will not stop looking for you. He does not like losing his investments." "Tell Dalton that I am dead," Olivia said. "Tell him you found out I died of fever on the way to Texas. Tell him whatever you want, but if I ever see you or anyone else from Denver on this property again, there will be blood." Jake mounted his horse and rode away, still cursing. Olivia stood in the doorway, rifle in hand, until he disappeared from sight. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed onto the floor, shaking violently. She had defended her home. She had stood up to Jake and sent him away. But at what cost? If he told anyone in town about her past, she would be ruined. If word reached Sam, he would divorce her and she would lose everything. When Sam returned the next evening, tired but pleased with the prices he had gotten for his cattle, he found Olivia unnaturally quiet. She served his dinner without meeting his eyes, and when he tried to pull her into his arms, she stiffened slightly. "Olivia, what is wrong?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. "Did something happen while I was gone?" she wanted to tell him. The words were right there, pressing against her lips. But fear won out. "I just missed you," she said, which was true if incomplete. Over the next few weeks, Olivia lived in a state of constant anxiety, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Every time someone came to the door, every trip to town, she expected to be exposed. But days passed, then weeks, and nothing happened. Perhaps Jake had taken her advice and told Dalton she was dead. Perhaps she was safe. She tried to relax back into her life with Sam, but something had changed. There was a distance between them now, created by her fear and secrets. Sam noticed and tried to bridge it, but Olivia could not fully let him in, terrified of what would happen if he learned the truth. One evening in early October, they were sitting together on the porch when Sam finally confronted her. "Olivia, I know something is wrong. You have been different ever since I returned from the cattle drive. Did I do something to upset you?" "No, of course not," she said quickly. "You have been wonderful. You are always wonderful." "Then what is it? Please talk to me. I cannot fix what is wrong if you will not tell me what it is." The concern and love in his voice broke something inside her. She could not keep lying to him. He deserved the truth, even if it cost her everything. "Sam," she said slowly, "there is something I need to tell you about my past, about who I was before I came to Fort Worth. And when I tell you, you may want me to leave. You may want to end our marriage, but I cannot keep lying to you anymore." He turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "I told you before, there is nothing you could tell me that would change how I feel about you. I meant that." "You say that now," Olivia whispered, "but you do not know." Sam, before I answered your advertisement, I was not living a respectable life. I was working in a saloon in Denver. Many women work in saloons, Sam said carefully. Cooking, cleaning, I was not cooking or cleaning, Olivia interrupted. I was a saloon girl. I wore silk dresses and sang songs, and men paid to drink with me and dance with me and spend time in my company. I never went upstairs with any of them. I swear that is true. I only sang and talked and danced. But I know what people think of saloon girls, what kind of women they assume us to be. I am not respectable, Sam. I never was. And when you placed that advertisement, I saw a chance to become someone different, to have the kind of life I had always dreamed of. So I lied. I let you believe I was a decent woman, and I married you under false pretenses. She could not look at him as she spoke, could not bear to see the disgust that must be forming on his face. The day I went to town while you were gone, I saw a man from Denver. He recognized me, and he came here while you were at market. He tried to get me to go back, said I owed money to the saloon owner. I sent him away, but Sam, if he tells anyone in town about my past, I will bring shame on you. You married me thinking I was respectable, and I have been lying to you this whole time. The silence that followed felt endless. Olivia forced herself to look up and found Sam staring at her with an expression she could not read. You sent him away? Sam asked finally. The man who came here? Yes. I used the rifle and told him if he ever came back I would shoot him. Did he hurt you? No, he left before you returned. Sam stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, his back to her. Olivia felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This was it. He would tell her to pack her things and leave. She would lose the only real home she had ever known. Do you know what I was doing the year before I sent for a mail-order bride? Sam asked, his voice strange. I was drinking myself half to death. After my parents died, I was so lonely and lost that I would ride into town every Saturday night and drink until I could barely stand. I got into fights. I spent money I could not afford to spend. I was on the path to losing everything. He turned to face her, and Olivia saw that his eyes were wet. It was Mrs. Henderson who finally set me straight. She found me passed out behind her boarding house one night and hauled me inside. When I woke up, she told me I had two choices. I could continue destroying myself, or I could find a reason to live. She suggested I needed a wife, someone to build a life with, something worth staying sober for. So I cleaned myself up and placed that advertisement, hoping some woman would be willing to take a chance on a rough rancher who had nearly drunk himself to death. Sam, Olivia whispered, stunned. We all have pasts, Olivia. We all have things we are ashamed of. You worked in a saloon because you had to survive. You did what you needed to do, and you never compromised your virtue, even in desperate circumstances. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. You are brave and strong and resourceful. And most importantly, you are my wife. I love you, and nothing you could tell me about your past would change that. Olivia could not speak through her tears. Sam crossed to her and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her tightly. You should have told me sooner, he said into her hair. You should have trusted me. But I understand why you were afraid. I forgive you for the deception, and I want you to forgive yourself. I do not deserve you, Olivia sobbed. That is not true. We deserve each other. We are two people who were lost and alone, and we found each other. We are building something good here, something real. Do not let the past destroy what we have. They held each other on the porch as the sun set, and for the first time since arriving in Fort Worth, Olivia felt truly free. The secret that had been poisoning her marriage was finally out in the open, and Sam still loved her. He still wanted her. She was not going to lose everything after all. I love you, she told him, the words coming easily now. I have loved you for weeks, but I was too afraid to say it. I love you, Sam Griffin, more than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone. I love you too, he said, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. My brave, beautiful wife. We are going to have a good life together, I promise you that. That night, they came together with a new depth of intimacy, all barriers finally broken down. Olivia felt cherished and loved in a way she had never experienced before, and she gave herself to Sam completely, holding nothing back. In the weeks that followed, something seemed to shift in their relationship. Having the truth out in the open freed them both, and their love deepened and grew stronger. Sam was more relaxed, more openly affectionate, and Olivia blossomed under his love and acceptance. But their peace was not to last. One afternoon in late October, Constance Fairfield appeared at the ranch in an expensive carriage, without warning or invitation. Olivia was in the garden when the carriage rolled up, and her stomach sank. Nothing good could come from this visit. Constance stepped down from the carriage, her dress impeccable as always, her expression cold. "Mrs. Griffin, how rustic you look. Is that dirt under your fingernails?" "I was gardening," Olivia said evenly, wiping her hands on her apron. "What brings you here, Mrs. Monroe?" "Oh, I think you know." Constance's smile was cruel. "I had the most interesting conversation last week with a gentleman from Denver. Jake Hansen was his name. He had quite the story to tell about you." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I have no idea what you are talking about. Do not play coy. He told me all about the Silver Dollar Saloon and the pretty girl named Vivian who worked there. He described you perfectly, right down to that auburn hair and those green eyes. You were a saloon girl, Mrs. Griffin. You sold yourself to men for money, and then you tricked poor Sam into marrying you." "That is not true," Olivia said, her voice shaking. "I never sold myself. I sang and served drinks, nothing more." "Do you really think anyone will believe that? Do you think Sam will continue to stand by you once the whole town knows what you were? You have brought shame on him, on all of us." "What do you want, Constance?" Olivia asked wearily. "I want you to leave. Pack your things and go back to wherever you came from. Sam deserves better than a used-up saloon girl for a wife. If you leave quietly, I will not spread what I know. But if you stay, I will make sure everyone in Fort Worth knows exactly what kind of woman you are." "I am not leaving," Olivia said firmly. "This is my home and Sam is my husband. Whatever you think you know about me does not change that." "You are making a mistake," Constance warned. "I will ruin you. Then do your worst. I am not afraid of you anymore." Constance looked genuinely surprised by this defiance. She opened her mouth to say something else, but at that moment, Sam came around the corner of the house, having heard the raised voices. "Constance, what are you doing here?" he asked, his tone hard. "I came to offer you an escape from your unfortunate marriage, Sam. Did you know your wife used to work in a saloon? She was a dance hall girl entertaining men for money. She has been lying to you this whole time." "I know," Sam said calmly. "Olivia told me everything weeks ago." Constance's mouth fell open. "And you are still with her. Sam, she is trash. She has no breeding, no respectability. How can you stand to be married to such a woman?" "That woman is my wife, and I love her," Sam said, his voice cold now. "What she did before we met is none of your concern. She is one of the bravest, most decent people I have ever known, which is more than I can say for you. You need to leave, Constance. Now." "You are a fool," Constance spat. "When everyone in town finds out, you will be laughingstocks." "Then let them laugh," Sam said, moving to stand beside Olivia and taking her hand. "I do not care what people think. I only care about my wife and our life together. Goodbye, Constance." Constance stared at them both with hatred in her eyes, then turned on her heel and climbed back into her carriage. As it rolled away, Olivia sagged against Sam in relief. "She is going to tell everyone," Olivia said. "By tomorrow, the whole town will know." "Let them know," Sam said, tilting her face up to look at him. "I meant what I said. I do not care. You are my wife, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me." "But Sam, you will lose business. People will not want to associate with us." "Then they are not people worth knowing." He kissed her gently. "We have each other, Olivia. That is all that matters." True to her word, Constance wasted no time spreading her gossip. By the end of the week, when Sam and Olivia made their regular trip to town for supplies, they could feel the weight of stares and whispers following them. Some people crossed the street to avoid them. Others simply stared with open curiosity or judgment, but not everyone turned their backs. Harriet Sullivan marched right up to them in front of the general store and linked arms with Olivia. "Well, the gossip mill has been churning," she said cheerfully. "I thought I would come show my support for my friend." "Harriet, you do not have to do this," Olivia protested. "Your reputation will suffer if you are seen with me." "Oh, please. My husband runs the livery stable. It is not like we move in high society circles. Besides, I meant it when I said I wanted to be your friend." "That does not change just because you have a more interesting past than the rest of us boring housewives." Mrs. Henderson also made her support known, stopping Sam in the street to tell him loudly that he had chosen well, and anyone who thought otherwise was a fool. Dr. Morrison and his wife also remained friendly, as did several others, but there were plenty who did turn their backs. Olivia found herself on the receiving end of cold stares and muttered insults when Sam was not within earshot. One woman actually spat at her feet as she passed. It was humiliating and painful, but Olivia held her head high and refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. The worst came when Reverend Thompson paid them a visit at the ranch. Olivia assumed he was coming to tell them they were no longer welcome at church services, and she braced herself for the rejection. But instead, the Reverend surprised her. "I came to say that I am sorry," he said, sitting in their small parlor and accepting the coffee Olivia nervously served him. "Sorry that people in my congregation have been treating you poorly, Mrs. Griffin. It is not Christian, and it is not right." "I deceived your entire community," Olivia said quietly. "I let everyone believe I was someone I was not." "You let them believe you were respectable, which you are," Reverend Thompson corrected gently. "Working in a saloon does not make you less worthy of respect, especially when you did nothing immoral. You were a woman alone trying to survive. There is no shame in that. The shame belongs to those who are judging you harshly for your past, instead of seeing the good person you are now." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Reverend. You have no idea how much that means to me." "You are both welcome at services anytime," he continued. "And if anyone gives you trouble, they will answer to me." After he left, Olivia cried in Sam's arms, overwhelmed by the kindness and support. "I thought everyone would hate me," she sobbed. "The people who matter do not hate you," Sam assured her. "The rest will come around eventually, or they will not. Either way, we will be fine." As autumn turned to winter, life gradually settled into a new normal. Some people in town continued to snub them, but others had moved on to the next scandal. Olivia and Sam focused on their ranch and their life together, working hard to prepare for winter and planning for the future. In December, Olivia realized she had missed her monthly courses. At first, she thought it was just stress, but when a second month passed without them, she knew. She was with child. She told Sam one evening over dinner, nervous about his reaction. They had never discussed having children, and she was not sure if he would be pleased or upset. Sam stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen, and he jumped up from his chair to sweep her into his arms, spinning her around. "A baby! We are going to have a baby!" "Yes," Olivia laughed, dizzy from the spinning. "Are you happy?" "Happy, I am thrilled. This is the best news I have ever received." He set her down carefully, suddenly worried. "Are you all right? Should you be on your feet? Do you need to rest?" "I am fine, Sam. Women have babies all the time. I am healthy and strong. We need to be careful. No more heavy work for you." "I will hire someone to help with the chores, Sam," Olivia interrupted, amused by his sudden protectiveness. "I am pregnant, not dying. I can still work, but perhaps not quite as hard as before." They spent the evening making plans, discussing names and where the baby would sleep. Sam was like a child himself, barely able to contain his excitement. That night, he placed his hand on her still flat stomach and whispered, "Hello, little one. Your papa cannot wait to meet you." Olivia had never felt more loved or more content. Despite all the difficulties, despite the gossip and the judgment, she had found something precious here in Fort Worth. She had found a home, a husband who loved her, and now a child on the way. She had found the respectability and real love she had always dreamed of. The winter was mild by Texas standards, and Olivia's pregnancy progressed normally. Dr. Morrison examined her regularly and pronounced her healthy. As her belly grew, Sam became increasingly protective, insisting she rest more and do less. It was both endearing and slightly frustrating. One cold February afternoon, Olivia was resting in the rocking chair near the fireplace when she heard horses approaching. She stood up carefully, her hand on her swollen belly, and went to the window. Her heart sank when she recognized the lead rider, Dalton, the owner of the Silver Dollar Saloon. He was flanked by two rough-looking men, and they rode right up to the cabin as if they owned the place. Olivia grabbed the rifle and called out through the closed door, "You are trespassing. State your business and leave." "Vivian, or Olivia, or whatever you are calling yourself now," Dalton's voice was smooth and cold, "I've come to collect what is mine. You owe me a considerable sum of money, and I intend to be paid." "I owe you nothing," Olivia shouted back. "I worked for you for years, and you kept every penny I earned. Any debt between us is settled." "That is not how I see it. You ran out on your contract. I want $500 or you come back to Denver with me. I am married now, and I am carrying my husband's child. I am not going anywhere with you, and you will not get a penny from me. Now leave before I put a bullet in you." Dalton laughed. "You think your cowboy husband is going to protect you? Where is he anyway? Out chasing cows. Maybe my men and I will just come in there and take what we want." Olivia cocked the rifle, the sound loud and clear. "Try it, and I will kill you. I have already run one of your men off my property. I will do worse to you." She heard Sam's voice then, coming from behind the men. "I suggest you listen to her. My wife is an excellent shot, and she will not hesitate to defend her home." Olivia saw Sam riding up fast, and relief flooded through her. He had his own rifle out, pointed at Dalton and his men. "So you are the fool who married her," Dalton said, turning his horse to face Sam. "Did she tell you what she was? Did she tell you about all the men she entertained?" "She told me she was a saloon singer who left because you were cheating her and treating her poorly," Sam said calmly. "Now, you have 3 seconds to get off my land before I start shooting. 1. You would not dare. I have 2 men with me. 2. Sam's finger moved to the trigger. Dalton must have seen something in Sam's eyes that convinced him this was not a bluff. He swore viciously and yanked his horse around. "This is not over. You owe me, Vivian." 3, Sam said, and fired a shot that passed close enough to Dalton's head that he could probably feel the wind of it. Dalton and his men took off at a gallop, cursing and shouting threats. Sam watched them go, then quickly dismounted and ran to the cabin. Olivia met him at the door, and he pulled her into his arms carefully, mindful of her belly. "Are you all right? Did they hurt you?" "I am fine. You came just in time." She was shaking now that the danger had passed. "I saw them riding this way and knew something was wrong." "Olivia, we need to report this to the sheriff. That man is dangerous." They rode into town that afternoon, and Sam made a full report to Sheriff Barnes, describing Dalton and his men and the threats they had made. The sheriff promised to keep an eye out and to spread the word to neighboring towns. "If they show up again, you send for me immediately," the sheriff instructed. "And if you need to defend yourselves before I can get there, you do what you have to do. A man has the right to protect his wife and home." As they were leaving the sheriff's office, they ran into Constance Fairfield on the street. Olivia braced herself for another confrontation, but to her surprise, Constance looked almost embarrassed. "Sam, Mrs. Griffin," she said stiffly, "I heard about the trouble at your ranch. Men threatening a pregnant woman. That is unacceptable." "Thank you for your concern," Sam said coolly. Constance took a deep breath as if gathering courage. "I owe you both an apology. I have been petty and cruel, and I am ashamed of my behavior. Mrs. Griffin, I had no right to spread gossip about your past. What you did before coming here is your business, and I should not have tried to ruin your reputation out of jealousy." Olivia was too shocked to speak. Sam's expression was skeptical. "Jealousy? Yes," Constance admitted. "I wanted you to regret not pursuing me, Sam. I wanted to prove that I had made the better choice in marrying for money instead of love. But the truth is, I have been miserable. My late husband was cold and cruel, and I was relieved when he died. Seeing you so happy with your wife made me bitter. I lashed out, and I am sorry." "I appreciate your apology," Olivia said carefully, "and I am sorry you were unhappy in your marriage." Constance nodded and walked away, leaving them both slightly stunned. "Well," Sam said, "that was unexpected. People can change, I suppose," Olivia said. "I did." Over the next few weeks, word spread about the confrontation at the Griffin Ranch, and oddly enough, it seemed to improve their standing in the community. People who had been cold to them became more friendly, apparently taking the view that anyone who would threaten a pregnant woman was beyond the pale, and the Griffins deserved support. Even those who had judged Olivia for her past seemed to soften, seeing how devoted Sam was to her and how bravely she had defended her home. Harriet Sullivan told Olivia that the tide of public opinion had shifted. "You are respectable now, whether certain people wanted to admit it or not. You are Sam's wife, you are having his baby, and you stood up to those terrible men. That is what people will remember." In early April, on a warm spring morning, Olivia went into labor. Sam rode into town at a breakneck pace to fetch Dr. Morrison, and Harriet came out to the ranch to help. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the day and into the night. Sam paced frantically outside the bedroom, wearing a path in the floor until finally, just before dawn, he heard the thin cry of a baby. Dr. Morrison emerged from the bedroom, smiling tiredly. "Congratulations, Sam. You have a son, a healthy boy with good, strong lungs, and your wife is doing well, though she is exhausted." Sam practically ran into the bedroom. Olivia was propped up against pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her face pale but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in the quilt Sam's mother had made. "Sam," she said softly, "come meet your son." He approached slowly, almost reverently, and looked down at the small red face peeking out from the blankets. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was making small mewling sounds, his tiny fists waving. "He is perfect," Sam whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You are perfect, both of you." He bent down and kissed Olivia's forehead gently. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for everything." "What should we name him?" Olivia asked. They had discussed names for months but never quite settled on one. Now, looking at his son, Sam said, "What about Joseph? It was my father's name." "Joseph Griffin," Olivia said, testing it out. "I like it. Hello, Joseph. Welcome to the world, little one." Sam sat carefully on the edge of the bed, and Olivia placed the baby in his arms. He held his son with such tenderness, such awe, that Olivia felt tears slide down her cheeks. This moment, this perfect moment, was everything she had ever wanted. She had a husband who loved her, a beautiful, healthy son, and a home where she belonged. She was respectable. She was loved. She was finally, truly happy. The weeks after Joseph's birth were exhausting but joyful. Sam was a devoted father, taking on even more of the household work so Olivia could rest and focus on the baby. He would come in from working on the ranch and immediately wash up so he could hold his son, talking to him softly and making silly faces to try to get him to smile. "He smiled at me today," Sam announced one evening, beaming with pride. "That was probably gas," Olivia said, amused. "It was not gas. It was a real smile. He knows his papa." Olivia just smiled and shook her head. Watching Sam with Joseph filled her heart to overflowing. She had never imagined a man could be so gentle, so involved with an infant. But Sam was a natural father, changing diapers without complaint and walking the floor with Joseph when he was fussy in the middle of the night. They were baptized Joseph at the church in May, with Harriet and her husband standing as godparents. The church was full, and Olivia was touched by how many people came to support them. Even Constance attended, bringing an expensive christening gown as a gift. Whatever rift had existed between them seemed to have healed, though they would never be close friends. As spring turned to summer, life on the ranch continued its steady rhythm. Sam's cattle were doing well, and he was able to hire a young man to help with the work, which made things easier. Olivia managed the household and cared for Joseph, finding joy in the simple routines of domestic life. She had never been happier. One afternoon in late June, Sheriff Barnes rode out to the ranch with news. "Thought you should know, Sam, that fellow Dalton was arrested in New Mexico territory. Turns out he was wanted for a whole list of crimes, including kidnapping and assault. He will be in prison for a long time." "That is good news," Sam said, relief evident in his voice. "Thank you for letting us know, Sheriff." After the sheriff left, Sam found Olivia in the garden, Joseph sleeping in a basket in the shade nearby. He wrapped his arms around her from behind and rested his chin on her shoulder. "Did you hear that?" he asked. "Dalton is in prison. He cannot threaten you anymore." "I heard," Olivia said, leaning back against him. "It feels like the last shadow from my past has finally been lifted. You are safe now. We are all safe." He turned her in his arms to face him. "I love you, Olivia Griffin. I loved you when you were scared and hiding your past. I loved you when the truth came out. I love you more every single day." "I love you too," she said, reaching up to cup his face. "You saved me, Sam. You gave me respectability and a home and a family. You gave me real love, the kind I never thought I would find. You are the best man I have ever known." He kissed her then, sweet and deep, and Olivia felt the rightness of it down to her bones. This was where she belonged. This was her life now, and it was beautiful. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset with Joseph sleeping in Olivia's arms, Sam said, "I was thinking, in a few years when Joseph is older, maybe we could build that bigger house I mentioned when you first came here. Something with separate rooms for the children." "Children?" Olivia asked, raising an eyebrow. "Plural," Sam grinned. "Well, I was hoping Joseph would not be an only child. I always wanted a big family. What do you think?" "I think that sounds wonderful," Olivia said, her heart full. A big family in a big house right here on our ranch. I cannot imagine anything better. Over the next few years, their dreams became reality. Sam's ranch prospered, and he was able to build a larger house, a sturdy 2-story structure with 4 bedrooms, a proper kitchen, and even a parlor for entertaining. When Joseph was 2, Olivia gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, with blonde hair and Sam's blue eyes. 18 months after that came another son, Thomas, who looked like a perfect mix of both his parents. The house was always full of noise and laughter, children running through the rooms, and Sam's booming voice as he played with his sons and doted on his daughter. Olivia had never imagined she could be so happy, so complete. The past felt like it belonged to a different person, a girl named Vivian who had once sung in a Denver saloon. That girl was gone, replaced by Olivia Griffin, rancher's wife and mother, respectable and loved. Harriet remained her closest friend, their children growing up together and their families often sharing meals and celebrations. Even Constance, who had remarried a rancher from a neighboring county, would occasionally visit with her new husband, a kind man who seemed to genuinely care for her. Time had softened all the rough edges, healed all the old wounds. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Sam took Olivia into town for a rare dinner at the hotel restaurant, having arranged for Harriet to watch the children. They dressed in their finest clothes and enjoyed a leisurely meal, talking and laughing like the young couple they had been when they first met. "You ever regret it?" Sam asked over dessert. "Answering that advertisement, coming all this way to marry a stranger?" "Never," Olivia said without hesitation. "Not for a single moment. You gave me everything I ever wanted, Sam. A home, a family, love. You saw past my mistakes and gave me a chance to be better. How could I ever regret that?" "I am the one who got the better end of the bargain," Sam insisted. "You made my house a home. You gave me 3 beautiful children. You work harder than any woman I know, and you never complain. I wake up every morning grateful that you chose me." "I will always choose you," Olivia said, reaching across the table to take his hand. "In this life and the next, I will always choose you." They walked home slowly that night, hand in hand under the stars, talking about their children and making plans for the future. When they reached their house, they stood on the porch for a moment, looking out over the land that had become their legacy. "Happy?" Sam asked, pulling her close. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible," Olivia replied, and it was true. The former saloon girl had found respectability, yes, but more importantly, she had found real love. She had found a man who valued her for who she was, not what she could do for him. She had found a place where she belonged, where her past did not define her, where she could be simply Olivia Griffin, beloved wife and mother. As the years continued to pass, their family grew and changed. Joseph, their eldest, grew into a responsible young man who loved working the ranch alongside his father. Sarah became a bright, spirited girl with her mother's determination and her father's kind heart. Thomas was mischievous and funny, keeping them all laughing with his antics. When Olivia turned 35, she discovered she was pregnant again, a surprise that delighted them all. This time she gave birth to twin boys, James and Daniel, who looked so alike that only their mother could consistently tell them apart. The house was fuller and louder than ever, and Olivia loved every chaotic moment. Sam continued to build his ranch into one of the most successful in the region. He was known as a fair employer and an honest businessman, respected by everyone in Fort Worth and beyond. No one spoke anymore about his mail-order bride or her questionable past. That story had been absorbed into their family history, just another piece of their journey together. On quiet evenings, when the children were finally in bed and the house was still, Sam and Olivia would sit together on the porch swing he had built, rocking gently and watching the stars. Sometimes they would talk about the day, sharing stories and making plans. Sometimes they would sit in comfortable silence, content just to be together. "You remember that first day?" Olivia asked one such evening, her head resting on Sam's shoulder. "When I stepped off that stage and saw you for the first time. I remember thinking you were the most beautiful woman I had ever seen," Sam said. "And I was terrified you would take one look at me and get right back on that stage." "I almost did," Olivia admitted with a laugh. "I was so scared. But then you smiled at me and I thought maybe everything would be all right." "Was I right?" Sam asked, kissing the top of her head. "You were more than right. You were perfect." As they grew older, they watched their children grow up and start families of their own. Joseph married a sweet girl from town and brought his bride to live on the ranch, working alongside his father to keep the operation running. Sarah married a banker and moved to Fort Worth, where she became active in charitable works, helping women who found themselves in difficult circumstances. Thomas became a horse trainer, famous throughout Texas for his skill and patience with even the most difficult animals. The twins, James and Daniel, stayed on the ranch, neither of them interested in marriage, content to work the land they loved and care for their aging parents. The house that had once echoed with the sounds of small children now hosted grandchildren who came to visit, running through the same rooms their parents had run through years before. On Sam and Olivia's 30th anniversary, their children threw them a party, inviting everyone from the community. The house and yard were filled with people, food, music, and laughter. As the sun began to set, Sam stood up and called for everyone's attention. "I want to thank you all for coming today," he said, his voice still strong despite his years. 30 years ago, I took a chance and sent for a mail-order bride. I was lonely and desperate for companionship, and I did not really know what I was doing. But somehow, miraculously, the universe sent me exactly the woman I needed. Olivia has been my partner, my best friend, the mother of my children, and the love of my life. Every day with her has been a blessing. So please join me in celebrating not just 30 years of marriage, but 30 years of happiness, of love, of building a life together against all odds. Everyone cheered and raised their glasses. Olivia stood and hugged Sam tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I love you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me this beautiful life." "Thank you for sharing it with me," Sam replied. As the party continued around them, their children and grandchildren celebrating, Sam and Olivia slipped away to their favorite spot on the porch. They sat together on the swing, watching the last light fade from the sky, and reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "No regrets?" Sam asked, as he had asked so many times over the years. "Not a single one," Olivia replied, as she always did. "You gave me everything, Sam. Respectability, yes, but so much more than that. You gave me love, real love, the kind that lasts a lifetime. You gave me a family and a home and a place in the world. You saw value in me when I could not see it in myself. How could I possibly have regrets?" They sat together as night fell. Two people who had started as strangers brought together by circumstance, who had built a love story that would endure for generations. The former saloon girl and the lonely rancher had created something beautiful, something lasting, something real. And as the stars came out one by one over the Texas sky, Olivia Griffin knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly the person she was meant to be with. She had found her home, her heart, her happily ever after, and it was more than she had ever dared to dream.